A lot of times, especially in our American culture, we think there's so much that we can't do on a high school campus or on any campus for that matter. But God is always working. There's always people. God's people are always in place all over. I remember sitting at a McDonald's, and I don't know if it was the Lord or the Holy Spirit or it was the Big Mac, but I just felt like I needed to go back to my old high school that I graduated from to expose them to the gospel. We want to help them mentally, spiritually, physically, as a complete person. I pray, and it's like, okay, God, please help me, give me some, go before me. And I drive down the street, I enter the school, and the particular school I graduated from, the high school was 100% African American. And the superintendent of the school, I knew her from when I was a student there, and I told her a little bit about Campus Crusade for Christ, and she looks at me, and then she looks at her watch, and she says, come with me. And then we go around to the teacher's lounge, and the principal's in there with all the teachers. And she says, Tyrone's here to tell you about a new program that we're going to start on the campus. And I am stuck. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. I was fumbling all over every word I said, and I was probably using language that I shouldn't have said in a public school. I'm like telling the principal and the superintendent, I want your students to be missionaries on the campus. And one of the teachers in the back, she stands up and she just starts to cry, and she says, Tyrone, I know there's a God because none of us thought you were ever going to graduate when you were here. And here you are telling us about how now you want to reach our students for Christ. You can do whatever you want to do. And I'm fired up. And here I am, young and just so full of the Holy Spirit and ignorance all at the same time. And I go into the principal's office and I say, hey, can we hold the buses off for 35 minutes? And he looks at me and he just starts laughing. And he says, no, that's not going to work. But I tell you what if we let school out 35 minutes early? Well, that works. They let school out 35 minutes early. We got the superintendent, principal, assistant principal, and 2 counselors sharing the gospel to 365 students. And that day, every single student on that campus heard the good news of Jesus Christ. Every one of them. And it was shortly after that, I get a phone call from the police officer at the school. And I'm thinking, oh, great. And he says, Tyrone, I need to tell you something. I'm looking at this young man, but I'm looking at a miracle. I've arrested his brothers, but this young man is sitting on the step of the school reading the Bible. I said, now that is amazing. He says, whatever you need, I'm here for you. And I remember thinking after that day, Lord, you can do anything. If you can do that at a public school, you can do anything. To this day, that was 17 years ago that I was leading a football Bible study at that school. Each one of them, statistics would say at least one shouldn't have graduated high school. One should also be in jail. And none of them really should have graduated college. Each one of them have at least a bachelor's degree. They have led ministries. One is pursuing his PhD in theology. This ministry changes lives. Period. Period. I don't care what anybody says. You take the gospel into a school with a whole lot of courage that only God can give you. As God told Joshua, take courage. Sometimes you got to stand up. And you take that courage into a school, into the darkness. God is going to do something amazing. When you allow students to start to share their faith, you train students, they're going to change that whole school. But all it takes is for somebody, a young man, young woman, to step in and actually want to be an advocate for students. Somebody has to go into those spaces and talk to these students. We use this term, we say kids spell love T-I-M-E. And if you have a little bit of time, you can be a world changer.